Welcome to All Things Moore County, Moore County's weekly radio show highlighting the many facets of the Sandhills. That includes real estate, lifestyle, community and neighborhoods. And now, from 4 Properties, here's your host, Bill Sahadi.
Good morning and welcome to the talk show, All Things Moore County. Dorothy, this week actually marks our 16th year doing this together.
Hard to believe, isn't it?
You are still talking to me.
I am.
And yeah, it's been a privilege when I look back over all the shows that we've done. This show I've been looking forward to for a couple of months. One of the things about being in the real estate business is I get the opportunity to meet a lot of interesting people and a lot of people that have great stories to tell, but none more so than my guest today, Chris Heivly. Chris and his wife Patty settled into the downtown area of Southern Pines a couple of months ago. They closed on their house. And I got a chance to know Chris a little bit. And when he first told me he was one of the founders of Mapquest, I thought he was just kidding me. But the more that I've gotten a chance to speak with him, Chris is a writer. He's a public speaker. He is a community not a community organizer, but he specializes in tech and growing communities. He's been an entrepreneur. He's worn a lot of hats, and you know that expression that I always use, we have so many chapters in our lives.
Yep. Yeah,
I think Chris has probably...
more than anybody else?
Yeah, I definitely think so. Very proactive. He and his wife are going to be a great addition to Southern Pines. But I think, Chris, before we get into some of the things that you want to talk about, I want to ask you, what was it, because you've traveled and lived in a lot of different places, right? Starting out in Newtown Square, where I spent the first 8 years after graduating college. With all the travels and all the experience you've had, what was it about Southern Pines that made you want to make this your primary residence?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me.
Yeah.
It's my privilege to be sitting with the man, the myth, the legend,
Yeah.
Bill Sahadi here.
Yeah.
Someone jokingly referred to this as a Goldilocks move for us.
Uh-huh.
So we moved to North Carolina 20 years. We lived in Chapel Hill, but really the most time in Durham. So downtown Durham, and watched that whole place just blow up good.
Right.
And then we moved out to a lake south of Asheboro. And so we went from fully urban to almost fully rural. And so Southern Pines seems like it's just right, the Goldilocks. There's enough urban for us to be interested and have fun. And geez, we've been here a month and have just enjoyed, all of downtown and the greater environs. Yet it's still kind of a nice, quiet, small enough community. So it's Goldilocks. The bed is just perfect.
You're living, right in the epicenter of Southern Pines, where one of the prerequisites you and Patty had, you wanted to be walking distance to everything, and you are. You've got a little bit of vagabond in your DNA, and so you've traveled. I mean, you've lived in Chicago. You started in Pennsylvania, but you could write a chronology about all the places you lived.
You'd almost need a map to track all this.
There we go. Dorothy, he's very shy, and we're going to have a hard time getting him to express himself. So the first time we met, I remember we were trying to locate a place, an address. And I grew up in this business before there was GPS. And I remember learning the area, having a paper map, fumbling it, because it was so big, and you'd have to fold it. And by the end of the day, it looked like it was a crunched up piece of paper.
It was a one-time use almost.
Yeah. And today, a lot of the newer brokers rely solely on GPS. And you mentioned to me your background in geography and mapping. And tell me the story about how you evolved to a point where you got in, because you were also involved with Rand McNally.
Right.
How did that all progress? How did that all start?
Yeah, well, you said that I've been a vagabond and I've worn many hats.
Yes.
My summary of that is I tell people I have career ADD.
Okay.
So, to be honest, Bill, I spend about 3 to 5 years on something and then I get bored.
Okay.
And I'm not afraid to go on to the next chapter or challenge. And those challenges just emerged or evolved over my lifetime. But
Right.
grew up outside of Philadelphia, went to a local college, university, spent a year. I'd like to say we mutually decided that maybe I shouldn't come back after the first year. About a year and a half later, after working blue collar work, I went back, and it turns out my uncle was also a geographer and was getting a PhD at Penn State. And he said, "Why don't you try to take a geography class when you go back? I think you might enjoy it." And like a lot of us, you take a class or a professor that just syncs with you. And mine was a guy named Wes Thomas, and he taught a course called computer mapping. Now, I'm talking about computers were mainframes, way back before, but
In the 90s?
it lit a fire. And this is even 80s.
Oh,
This is 80s. This
Okay.
is late 70s, early 80s.
okay.
And I loved it so much. And this professor said, "Well, let's learn it together." And so, which becomes part of my DNA, by the way, is how do you collaborate and get stuff done? And you'll see that show up in everything I've ever done. But he encouraged me to take a couple computer science classes, and I just happened to go off and running. So, when we talk about being a good entrepreneur, I think a lot of times it's combining two things together that have never been mashed together before. And so for me in the early 80s and all the way through, till 2000 for 20 plus years,
Yep.
I smashed together computers and mapping and came up with stuff that we now know as Mapquest and other kinds of things like that.
You were in Lancaster, Pennsylvania at the time Mapquest was born.
Yeah.
You collaborated with somebody else, and you came up with Mapquest, which I think everyone is very familiar with.
Yeah. If you're under 30, it's starting to fade out.
Oh, okay.
I have to unfortunately admit that when I go around and do some public speaking, I usually say, if you've never heard of Mapquest, raise your hands. And it's about 28 to 30 years and younger.
Is that right?
And you just say, yeah, it was Google Maps 9 years before Google Maps. It's a little bit.
No, I get it. I tell
Sorry.
I know. I tell a lot of people. Gordon Lightfoot was one of my favorite singers, and if they're under 30, they look at me and they go, "Who?
Who?
What are
Yeah.
you talking about?"
Yeah.
I go, "You don't know who Gordon?" Then I realize that
Yeah.
this happened 40, 50 years ago.
I just say, go ask your parents. Your parents killed a lot of trees printing a lot of directions on Mapquest.
So you were in Lancaster for how long?
Yeah. So out of college, I went, like a lot of new technologies, I went to work for the federal government out of college, out of graduate school.
Uh-huh.
And so yes, I have a master's degree in geography, which don't ask me to be on your Trivial Pursuit team because I'm a terrible geographer. But computer mapping, great, go to work for the government, and then get recruited to Lancaster. And in Lancaster, we had about 50 cartographers making maps for National Geographic, the Park Service, every one of your textbooks that have maps in it, history textbooks. This is definitely an over age 30 thing. Your telephone books had maps in the front end
That's
of
right.
those.
That's right.
So we made all those maps for everyone. And so I got recruited to come in and say, help us automate all this map making. And, did that for a couple of years, but got bored and then started thinking, what else can we do? And so the evolution of Mapquest, which was about a 7 to 9 year journey for me, really is a series of applying technology. So the first one is we redid triptychs. So do you remember going to AAA and
Yes.
mom and dad getting a little 4-inch by 9-inch spiral bound little
Yes.
travel plan for how to drive from
Yes.
Long Island to, down to Florida?
Yes.
Sometimes they take a little yellow highlighter. So we replaced that with all the auto clubs, and then we did CD-ROMs when CD-ROMs came out, and you could do this now at home.
Right.
And then eventually that ended up being the internet, and we were very early on. February '96, we launched Mapquest, just as the internet was about a year or so old as we know it. And we're all of that out of the tech capital of South Central Pennsylvania, Lancaster, Pennsylvania.
But I know Lancaster so well. You know someone is not from Lancaster if they say, I was in Lancaster.
Correct.
Right?
Correct. By the way, home of 55,000 Amish people. So, it's kind of crazy that a billion-dollar tech unicorn grew out of Lancaster.
I lived in Philadelphia, as I said, for 8 years after college in Newtown Square. But I was living there at the time they shot the movie Witness. Do you remember?
Mm-hmm.
Harrison Ford, Kelly McGillis.
Yeah.
And they were doing it in Ephrata.
Yes.
Did I pronounce that right?
That is correct, yeah.
Okay. Bird in Hand, Ephrata on Old US 30.
Yes.
And I remember, and then they also shot a lot of it in the Philadelphia train station at 30th Street. That was the period, and that was in the 90s, I believe, or late 80s.
Good. I moved there
Great movie.
in '88.
Okay.
And I kind of feel like it was filmed right before that.
Okay.
So I might have missed all the hullabaloo about the filming, but I do remember the film well.
You said something interesting. After your 7 to 9 years with Mapquest, you learned how to become a venture capitalist.
What does that mean?
Yeah, what does that mean?
What is this
How
thing
did that come about?
Yeah, so, I want you to, for those of you of age, I want you to think about, it's 95 through 2000, the internet explodes. We're all using it, whether you're using AOL or a different kind, Yahoo and all, Google wasn't even around yet.
Right.
We're all going and getting information, and so Mapquest is doing a great job. And the company that we kind of built Mapquest in, and then we had spun it out and took on venture capital to help it grow. That company said, "Well, geez, you just made us a bunch load of money. What if we gave you $25 million and had you invest in more internet companies for us?" And that would be an interesting way to grow our businesses. This was a big public $6 billion company, and I was 35 or so at the time. Was kind of nicely forced to leave the board of directors of Mapquest because they needed adults on the board to be a public company, and frankly, I was bored with it already anyway.
Right.
So to say, hey, how would you like to make a complete career shift? We'll learn how to be a venture capitalist. We'll give you $25 million, and we'll move you to Chicago. And so did that in kind of in the 95 to 96 kind of time period, and then spent my whole life in California and Silicon Valley looking at companies and learning how you evaluate companies. And these are all tech internet companies.
And from that, you started to grow a community development model where you were combining tech with building communities. Am I saying it the right way?
You're saying it the right way, but there's a little sequencing that's, I think, kind of interesting and is a lesson for, all the youngsters out there. And it goes something like this. When you're, for most of us, Silicon Valley has been the tech capital of the world.
Right.
And so when you go and immerse yourself in that, you start to understand the language, the rules, the norms, the culture of what makes that place special.
Uh-huh.
And so after doing that for years and then, spending time in Chicago, and eventually we decided in Chicago that it's cold 6 months of the year. I mean, who knew, right?
Right.
And we decided to move to North Carolina. And what I said was I've kind of seen all these patterns. I know what makes for a great tech community and entrepreneurship. So as I start to figure out how I want to play a role, how do I bring all those lessons and patterns that I observed and learned out of the Valley, and how do I bring them to, in this case, Raleigh-Durham? And so that idea of how do kind of startup communities kind of are fostered, and how can you help people who have a dream and an idea, a little bit more tech oriented, but not exclusively. How do you help them get started and hopefully build great big companies? And so that's what I've been on that journey for now, probably 10 or 12 years.
Getting bored is a gift because it allows you, but it seems like you've had a smorgasbord of opportunities to meander off where you were and to branch out into something semi-related. And it seems like you've welcomed the opportunities as opposed to fearing them. And we want to come back in the second set, and we want to talk more about your journey. And Dorothy, I don't think we're going to have enough time today. I don't know that 40 minutes is going to cover it, but we're going to do our best. Chris Heivly is my guest. This is All Things Moore County. We'll be right back. Welcome back to our second set of All Things Moore County. Chris Heivly is our guest. He is a new resident of Southern Pines. He is a teacher, a mentor, a coach, motivational speaker, one of the founders of Mapquest, the president of McNally. Based on a lot of what you said in the first set, with the changes that came up, and you seem to welcome it, since you mentioned you were an undergraduate and kind of didn't know what you wanted to do, where did you get the courage and the confidence to constantly take on new challenges? Because you're living not the type of life so many people live, where they stay in one lane almost their entire life. You have exit ramps everywhere.
Yeah, it's a curse, maybe.
Yeah.
Not just the blessing, but Bill, it's a muscle.
Okay.
It's a muscle that builds over time.
Uh-huh.
So I can't tell you I was this confident at 28 or 35. Each year, I think I got a little bit more confident in what I was doing. I will tell you, it wasn't until I can remember this epiphany I had somewhere in my early 40s that said, guess what, Chris? You're not the guy who's going to run a company for the next 40 years and is going to become a multi-billion-dollar company. You're the guy who gets things started. You last 3 to 5 years, and then there'll be another one.
And you're out the door.
So that realization hit me kind of 41, 42 years old. And from then, confidence really soared because I just knew either I was going to get bored or they were going to get bored with me, and that there'll be another exit and on-ramp to something else. And knowing it's always going to be an exit and an on-ramp, then I could lean into that as opposed to being afraid of it.
It sounds like when you took all that on, you didn't have any low points because there were opportunities that were right in front of you that you said, yeah, I'll move from here to here and here to there. Were there any low points? Were there any voids in that string of events?
Well, I'll tell you, in 2001, when we sometimes call that the dot-com bomb, when all the internet companies crashed, and McNally had to file for bankruptcy, and I left, and I sat on the bench doing nothing for a year, and I tried to insert myself into other companies to see if I can come in and help them grow, existing companies as opposed to starting my own things. And during that year period, twice I was asked if I would be the CEO of a company, got into the beauty pageant, and didn't get selected. And in two different ways, it came down to two people, and they selected the other person. And I think it's right about that time I said, why am I letting other people decide my fate in my career? I'm going to take this, I'm going to do the things I want to do, and I'm going to take control of this. So that was for me, that was an interesting pivot. And I think things, I don't think I remember low points since then.
Yeah.
But that coincided with that epiphany to understand that this is who I am, this is what I'm good at. And so I'm going to have these little 3 to 5 year ups and downs. And the downs are not be downs per se, they're just the transition to whatever the next thing is.
Yeah.
And I think after doing those a couple times and looking back historically at what I was doing, I'm like, it's always going to work out. So just let it work out as opposed to over gripping it.
The fertilizer that you use for all of the changes and all of the pivots that you've made have been the relationships, right, that you formed, and you have a very strong point of view about networking
Yeah.
and relationships.
I don't think I mastered this till I was in my early 50s.
Uh-huh.
My only regret is I wished I had figured that out earlier in my career.
Right.
However, I am more extroverted than introverted. I am willing to be vulnerable and put myself out there.
Right.
If you can figure out ways to do that and are constantly connecting with people in meaningful ways, amazing things come back at you. Networking is sometimes a yucky word, and people think of it as an awkward
Yep.
conversation.
Disingenuous sometimes.
Yeah, insincere
Mhm.
and a transaction. And
Yep.
those are all the things that you feel when you're doing it wrong.
Right.
But if you're doing it right, oh my God, it's the most powerful
Right.
thing in the world. And frankly, today, I don't know why everyone doesn't lean in heavily and connect with more people on a daily, weekly, monthly basis and really put yourself out there, because amazing things come back that you can't even dream or configure for yourself.
So my take on you, as I got to know you, looking at homes and conversing, is you're like a walking MRI machine. You read people very well, and when you have chemistry, what I always refer to chemistry as two people who have shared experiences but don't know it yet.
Yeah.
And when you can click, that's chemistry. So you look for avenues of genuineness as opposed to those transactional type.
Yeah, I mean, I do even take it, and I learned this from my father, a step further in that I believe that you can alter your chemistry based on who's sitting in front of you,
Yeah.
to kind of use your metaphor a little bit. And
Yeah.
so to that end, I think there's overlap and connectivity no matter who you are or where you're coming from. Many people view it as money or status or neighborhood or things like that. I don't care about any of those things. Everyone has something interesting. Everyone is an expert in something. And if I'm curious, we can find something to connect on,
Right.
as long as I'm open to it and showing up a little bit vulnerable, to be honest with you. But I build great connections all over the world, and some of them become great friends, and some of them are good acquaintances. And I think it's my gold.
What did your dad do, and what did you learn from him?
My dad was a graduate of Lafayette College.
That's right. That's
You know,
right. You
someone
told me.
else in this table.
That's me.
That would be him.
Mm-hmm.
He was kind of a classic middle manager kind of guy. Worked for GE and Westinghouse and
Yep.
United Engineers and down in downtown Philadelphia. Interesting thing is, at 39 he had 3 heart attacks. At 40 he had bypass surgery. At 40, and never worked a day afterwards.
Oh my gosh. I didn't
Really,
know that.
and lived 38 years when they expected him to live 5 to 8 years. But I tell that story to say my dad lived in fear. My dad was a risk
He was averse to risk.
averse, and was like radar was on for risk all the time.
Yep.
Now, after 39, I understand why that happened. What I saw in him is that, which cued me in because I was in my mid-teens when all of this was going down, is I don't want to be in that position. And so part of that was understanding how I collaborate more. And he took so much on himself that he put so much pressure on himself that his heart kind of had issues. But I also saw him, not be afraid to be vulnerable, be afraid. Obviously, also that generation, let's be clear. But I just learned some things. Those are kind of the things not to do. The big thing I learned from him is that treat everyone as an equal, regardless of their position. You're only your business is only as strong as your juniorest player. So you better love them as much as you love the highfalutin peoples.
My father went to Lafayette. He graduated just around World War II, 42. I learned from him to take chances. He was risk averse, but he also had 4 children. There were other reasons, but I saw him towards the end of his life, and he passed when he was 70. he looked back and he left a lot of opportunities on the table, and he was a smart man.
Yeah.
But he never had the opportunities, or never took them, for many reasons. And I just remember saying, I'm going to pivot, I'm going to
Yeah.
take chances, and you know what? What's going to happen?
Yeah.
All you're going to do is grow. And like you say, build a muscle. Um, but even today, we have young people who are fearful of stepping out and taking chances, and then we have the romantics who want to do their own thing, start their own business, not be a corporate type, but they don't have a plan.
Right.
And you have gotten involved, I think, coaching people like that as well.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I have stories.
Yeah.
So I'm willing to share stories and share my stories, the good ones, the bad ones, the mediums, the mistakes, the wins, and all those things. And that's the best kind of mentorship you can get, is someone who says, here's what I did in these situations.
Right.
But my goal the last 10 years is to inspire more people. You mentioned I do public speaking, and usually one of the things I ask is, I raise your hand if you've ever had a business idea of your own, and 98% of the hands go up. And I said, well, leave your hands up if you've taken the first step on that journey, and 98% of the hands go down. When I finish my life, I'd love to think that I've inspired more people to actually take the first few steps. And, one of the things I usually ask is, okay, of those of you who actually did take the first two steps, keep your hand up. Let me know if those failed, if you died from that failure. And obviously the answer is you didn't. They can't kill you, and they can't eat you. So how are you going to? So all right. So that's the floor. All right. So now the rest is what? Reputation, pride, ego. Let's see if we can help you. Maybe see if there's something. See if there's a pony in here, as we say in the investment industry.
Okay. I have a question for you. What is the difference between knowledge and action? Because a lot of people have knowledge about a lot of things, but they don't do anything about it.
Yeah.
Is there a catalyst? Does it have to do with your upbringing? Because there are a lot of people who don't take action, but they know. Knowing something and then doing something about it are two different things.
You know how you get to the third step?
Which is?
It could be different
Okay.
by taking the first two steps.
Yeah.
So action is just taking the first step.
Uh-huh.
The first step leads to the second step.
Right.
The second step leads to the third step. Momentum equals confidence. So you start, and we'll get into this in the third segment about the whole concept of building a fort, which is the metaphor I use, is pretend you're 10 years old and you're building that fort, and those lessons learned there are the ones you need to apply to starting anything.
A 10-year-old has a much less complicated layers around them than adults do. We know too much, and sometimes that's what holds people back, right?
We're our own worst enemies.
Right.
And as I say, if you're only inside your head, every decision is perfect.
Yeah.
So let's back to the network. Let's get out and share some of your ideas. Get out there and be a little vulnerable, and and the next thing you know, you might take that next step,
Yeah.
and then that'll give you permission to take the second step, and
Yeah.
now you're 8-10 steps down the road, and it's a couple months, and you got a little something going on.
Let's come back in the third set. Let's talk about the kind of coaching you do to get people to work through their fears, do something active, and see what else is on the other side of that. Chris Heivly is our guest. This is All Things Moore County. We'll be right back. Welcome back to our third and final set. Chris Heivly is our guest. Very interesting speaker. And Chris, probably comes as no surprise to you that Southern Pines and Pinehurst and Moore County in general is a petri dish for entrepreneurship, independent business people, people who work remotely, people who move here because of the lifestyle and have the ability to work here as opposed to urban areas with high taxes, blah, blah, blah. Just imagine we're sitting in a room with 50, 20, and 30 somethings, and we have many of them in our real estate business. And they're all putting their arms around the cultures of their different companies and trying to develop skills as independent contractors. And we all have different formulas. And I see people all the time, and I always am looking at their formulas. I think you do the same. But the metaphor that you use in the book that you wrote was called Build the Fort. And you mentioned that it's something that you learn as a 10-year-old, but forget to apply those same principles as you get older. Tell me about Build the Fort.
Well, thanks for asking. It's kind of what I've wrapped everything that I do around over the last 10 to 12 years.
Yep.
I did build a lot of forts as a kid. And when I think about that as a metaphor, I started thinking about how simple it seemed to be when we were 10 or 12 years old building those forts. And as adults, as you mentioned earlier, we overcomplicate things, and we have voices in our heads, and we listen to wrong advice, and we're so worried about managing all of that together that we, get paralyzed and maybe sometimes not even take that first step that we talked about. So I broke down, and I I wrote a book called Build a Fort, How to Start Anything. It's my first book. And I start off with a fort building story that I experienced as a kid. And Bill, what I kind of saw in that is 5 simple things. First of all, you have an idea, go share that without any fear or inhibition. Mm-hmm. So again, get it out of your own head, get out there and talk to as many people as possible.
Right.
It's amazing what happens when you do that, because they ask questions, which only makes your idea get a little bit better, firmer, whatever. Out of that leads to the second thing, which is go find people who want to join this journey with you. So we talked about networking before, but when you go talk to 35 or 50 people about your idea, invariably 1 or 2 will say, that's really cool. What can I do to help you?
Right.
So now you've got a team working on this. The third thing is, like in fort building, go find the things that you need for this business within arm's reach. If you go too big too fast, you either need a lot of money or a lot of time or a lot of experience, of which you usually don't have any of those 3 things. Right. So go back to fort building. When you were in your neighborhood and you went to build a fort, right, it was as far as your bicycle could take you, whether you're going to go find some wood or a tarp, an extra tarp or whatever, a shopping cart, whatever it was going to be.
Right.
The fourth thing is let the idea evolve. So everyone has this view of their idea, but that's 3 to 5 years out, the evolved version of the dream. But you can't go from 0 to 5 years like that. Startups are not small versions of large companies. Mm-hmm. You have to evolve. And so I talk about 3-month milestones and chunks, and set a goal for 3 months, hopefully get close to doing that. Great. Now what's the next 3 months? And you stitch together a couple 3 months, and the next thing you know, you got some momentum. Momentum is confidence, confidence for you, confidence for employees, partners, investors, whatever it may be. And then the 5th one, channeling Nike's slogan, just do it. Mm-hmm. Take that first step, do it without fear, smile during it. And those are the 5 steps of Build a Fort. And I believe you can apply those to anything that you're starting from scratch.
You said something in the break about the age of entrepreneurs and when they start a business and when they actually are successful. And there's a disparity in those ages.
Yeah, now remember, I, for the most part, spend most of my time with tech businesses, so this is a little bit skewed, but not that much from all the research I've done. The average age of a first-time founder of a company is 33 years old, 32 to 33. It's not college kids coming out in colleges and starting. Not to say some of them aren't, but it's someone who's got probably 8 to 10 years of working experience and a little bit of life experience under their belt. The next interesting stat is that the average age for a first-time entrepreneur, a successful one, where you have more success and failures, is closer to 42 to 45 years old.
Right.
And what that tells me is that at that point, you know, 20s, you're still figuring out what life's about. 30s, you're starting to settle in. I think by your 40s and up to your 50s, we kind of know who we are.
Yeah.
I mentioned my epiphany. I figured out who I was.
Yeah.
I think that, and self-awareness, I think, is a really good trait of successful entrepreneurs. Self-awareness guards against the demon voices in your head, the lack of experience that you would have had when you're younger. If you're really good about looking in the mirror and understanding kind of who you are, I think you'll make more better decisions, which creates more successful companies.
Yeah. You said two things that were really interesting earlier. You said get outside of your head. And the thing that you said this set, which I firmly believe in, is when you share something and you speak it, it actually starts to hold you accountable. Yeah. But if you don't share it, it's just a conversation. And
it's perfect. And the dream is always there.
Right.
But it's never
Right.
materializes in anything if you don't.
But if you verbalize it, you actually are standing for something, and it gives you more commitment, doesn't it?
Yeah. I do it all the time. I mentioned that I have a podcast launching in a couple weeks, and I mentioned it in December to my old, business that I was associated with, because I wanted them to actually distribute it and do all the hard work. I just wanted to talk. And I said, I really want to do a podcast. What do you guys think? And if I hadn't done that, they wouldn't have come back and said, well, why don't we do it with you? Right? And now I'm accountable for it. Now I got to go figure out what I'm going to talk about and the format. But I do that trick all the time because I want to be held accountable to the thoughts I have.
Yeah. I know so many people in their 20s and 30s who have dreams, and they will talk about their dream, but it's more of a romantic, long-distance view or version of it. But I don't know that they know the steps to take, nor do I think they may have the patience or the commitment to persevere.
Yeah.
Because the American dream, work for yourself, be your own
boss.
Your own boss, right? And it's difficult to carry out because it requires discipline.
Yeah.
And does that come up in many of your conversations and your coaching sessions?
Yeah, I mean, a little bit depends on kind of where they are in their journey.
Yeah.
If they're just starting out, I'd let them know that, there's some sacrifice here, and it might start at nights and weekends, and maybe you don't quit your daytime job.
Right.
But, that just puts a little pressure on those 3-month kind of milestones I mentioned. But, if you're working towards that at some pace, again, think of these as steps, then you're making some progress. If you... I do have some people that show up and say, I have a great idea, give me $1 million, and I'll go see if it's a good idea. And I say, Sparky, it doesn't work that way.
Right.
You have to go kind of prove your mettle a little bit. You got to go do some of the hard work.
Right.
And you have to figure out how to prepare financially, spiritually, physically for this journey, because it's not, it's not for the weak of heart.
Even when I see some of these Shark Tank episodes where they come out with a dream and they have a product, they get torn apart by the, I guess, the judges or whomever on the panel,
sharks.
The sharks, and they ask very specific questions, and sometimes the people don't have the answers, but they have this dream, but they're looking for maybe they're venture capitalists of a sort, looking for an investor to help them. The difference between knowledge and action is it's the key to success.
Yeah. Because in that action, you'll actually create more knowledge for yourself than just what you can read in a book or watch on a TV show or listen on a podcast. The action puts you into play.
Yeah. You've worn so many hats over the years, and as I look at you, I mean, I make a judgment too. When I met you, we got to talk and this and that. You're very proactive in your view of the world. You see opportunities, possibilities. I saw that in the way you looked at homes. You kind of knew what you wanted, but once you found it, it was easy. Um, it's a good way to be because your eyes were wide open. You weren't living in and by the way you and your wife communicate was very refreshing.
Thank you.
Well, maybe I could have been a marriage counselor because honestly, sometimes people don't listen to each other, spouses. You guys communicated. You see the world the same way. It makes it a lot easier to make big decisions.
Yeah, well, 35 years in, you better.
Well, you must have the same philosophy.
Yeah.
And I'm sure she's delighted to be here as well in Southern Pines.
She loves it. This is her dream, and this is as much for her as anything.
Is that right?
Yeah.
And you got friends here too who have bragged on Southern Pines to you. So you're here, you're getting settled, and you're at a pivot point, right? Right now, what once you get yourself settled, what are you looking at down the road? Because you're at an age where you've got many chapters in front of you. I mean, you're not at anywhere near the finish line.
I hope you're right.
Oh my gosh, hardly. Do you know? I have to tell you, the most productive years of my life literally started when I turned 50.
Yeah.
Before that, I didn't even want to remember. Oh God.
Yeah.
But I look back now and I go, wow, this has really been productive and proactive. I mean, you're in the same boat. You're in the same situation.
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited to wake up every day.
Right.
And
Can't wait to put your feet on the ground and go.
yeah, and what that go means may change from day to day or week to week or month to month. Over the last 5 years, I've optimized for being able to turn that up or down as needed. And so everything I do today is really from me. I don't want to build or start or build any businesses anymore. I just want to do the things that I enjoy. Writing, speaking. I have a weekly blog. I have written 2 books. I hope to start a third in the fall.
Right.
I do public speaking all over the U.S. and some global stuff. I can turn that up and down. I can say yes or no to those as I needed. And at the same time, also, I want to make time to play a little golf and learn how to play guitar.
Yeah.
So that's the recipe that I'm optimizing for. And but I'm open because if we sat here a year from now, I bet that mix would be a little different.
Yeah.
I don't know what it would be, but I'm open to see what happens.
I'm going to invite you to come and talk to my brokers at a sales meeting. I have some wonderful, very just great people, good-hearted, ethical, fair-minded. But I think they can benefit a lot from some of your experience.
Be my pleasure.
Because the travails of the real estate business, it's up and it's like a roller coaster.
Yeah.
And but people can also go on. You have a website?
Yeah, it's at Heivly.com, Heivly.com, and I write all about all kinds of stuff. So
Yep.
just search on those blogs.
It's a lot of information. I look through it, and people can go onto YouTube and type your name in, and you have numerous presentations, past presentations.
There's a fun TEDx talk I did at Duke that's fun to watch.
Right. So we'll make you a viral celebrity here in Southern Pines.
I'm
And
somebody.
you are, and there's some people that I've lived here now. This is my 25th, 26th year, and I love it here. And there's some people I'd love you to meet because I think you and Patty are going to become, an integral part of this community. And it's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you.
And it was a pleasure to have you on. And I would like to suggest perhaps doing another show with you, sitting down with a couple of young entrepreneurs or dreamers in the future and have you converse with them as part of the show.
Sounds like a lot of fun.
You do that?
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Chris Heivly, thank you for joining us. School starts here in about 2 weeks, and you're going to see a big pickup in traffic, and the whole rhythm of the area is going to start changing. But welcome to Southern Pines, and thanks for sharing your thoughts.
Thanks, Bill.
This is All Things Moore County. Have a great week.